I want to thank you for being here. And I want to thank you for being willing to talk about it and answer, some questions and speak about it, because I know that after all these years, I am certain that it still is emotional, at times probably painful. And so I just appreciate you having the courage to be here. I think not only speak for your husband, but speak for all law enforcement and families who've lost loved ones in the line of duty.
Yes, thank you for having me and for supporting everything that is going on with Brockport.
Yeah, it's been very very disappointing as a senator who represents the college, to see not only that Anthony Bottom has been invited to speak, but I think just as offensive, if not more so, has been the way that he has been portrayed to many students who weren't born when your husband was murdered by Mr. Bottom, as a political prisoner. But we'll get into that. I wanted to really just ask you just a couple of questions that you can, use to speak and go in any direction you want to go. For many people, I think it's hard to maybe understand what it's like as a family member who's lost a loved one in the line of duty. People know that the term Gold Star mothers or Gold Star families in the military. And, we know those are families who have lost a loved one in combat, but there isn't, at least that I'm aware of, there's not such a designation always for law enforcement families, at least as widely known maybe or talked about. And, like I said, you speak not only for your husband, Officer Joseph Piagentini, who lost his life, was murdered by Anthony Bottom, as well as Herman Bell. But, you speak, I think, for a lot of families out there who either aren't able to talk about it or can't talk about it for whatever reason. Can you just tell me about what it's like, your experience as a spouse, both when Joe was alive and out on duty? I'm sure that was not easy, but also, getting that call and just what it's been like for you in the years since his murder.
Okay, I can speak about that. Joe always wanted to be a police officer. We met in '66, and we were married for 5 years. And in that time, we had 2 children, 2 girls. And Joe was a very helpful person. If you needed something to be done, my mother-in-law needed something, he would go right away. His sister in California needed help in their carpet business, and he was in California helping them. He was a very, I would say, calm, mild-mannered person, but there was that strongness that you knew, okay, he's not agreeing with this. And I think that's what made him. I mean, I fell in love with him at first sight. We met at a dance. And he loved his work. We only had a 5-day honeymoon due to the job. And we needed permission in those days to get it too. So, we had, when that day happened, we had just started to show German Shepherds, and we had gone down to New Jersey to meet with a handler to show our dog. His name was Argus, and that's who my canine dog is named after. It's named after him. And it was a long trip, and we came back, and he had to go to work. It was a 4 to 12 shift. And I said to him, you could call in that you're not feeling well and that you can't do this, can you take the time? He said, no, I'm going. And he got dressed, put his uniform on, and off to the 3-2 he went. And that day, that evening is when I got the knock at the door, the police car out in the front with the lights going and the rain. It is a scene that you never, ever forget. As a family of a police officer, you think about this every time your husband leaves the house. Will he be coming home? And he didn't come home that day. And what happened to him and Waverly? Waverly and he went to the academy together. They had been in the academy and they worked together. And because the times were so violent with everything that was going on in the city, the Molotov cocktails, the throwing of the bricks off the buildings, Joe would come home and we would sit and have a cup of coffee and talk about his day. And I asked him, what would happen? God forbid something happened to you. And he said to me, I'm going to be with Waverly. We watch our backs. We are two partners and we're together and nothing's going to happen. So when that time came, I was in double shock that Waverly and he were both assassinated by Anthony Bottoms. It's something that families live with. I've raised my two children without him. They were 3 and 15 months. They never got to know their father. I now have grandchildren who will never get to know their grandfather and how wonderful he was and how strong he was and helpful and part of the community. He used to play basketball. We still have the hoop on the garage where the kids would come over and he would play basketball with them, or he would go across the street and he would play softball with them. So that's the kind of man he was.
I appreciate, Diane, you sharing that, and the way you shared it is obviously something the kind of person that you would think as would be a kind of a leader, someone that would go into law enforcement, somebody that was, as you put it, mild-mannered, but there was a strength, sort of a quiet strength that he possessed. And I'm very sorry for your loss. What did you think? Obviously, the last couple of years, from the parole of Anthony Bottom, I know that was gut-wrenching to see that, to know that he was going to be paroled. But what was your thoughts or your initial reaction when you heard he was not only speaking at Brockport, but that he was being characterized to students, again, students who were born long after? They may never have known about your husband, because of course there was no mention by Brockport about why this individual, why Anthony Bottom was in jail. It was just he was going to be speaking to a group of college students about being a political prisoner. And of course, this is a university funded by the taxpayers of New York State, including yourself. So what was your thoughts when you heard this?
I received an email from somebody who had heard this. And I looked at it and I said, I can't believe this. This is something that I can't believe is happening and should not be happening. But I also am a person to look up facts. Mm-hmm. And I went directly to Brockport's website. And what I saw there was just unbelievable. Here he is claiming to be a political prisoner. No mention there that he had assassinated and killed 2 police officers, my husband and Waverly Jones. Not one mention of who this person was that they are asking to speak. And that is the outrage. That is the point that I am trying to make here. It really, the college has said that, you know, free speech. Yes, we're allowed to have free speech. But when you have free speech, you also need to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And what was written was not the truth.
That's right.
And it's because of that that the invitation must be rescinded. You know, I believe in free speech because here I am exercising my rights.
Sure.
And SUNY Brockport is free to have anyone that they would like to speak to their students. But while I believe that SUNY Brockport should protect free speech, that does not mean that the school should provide a platform for an assassin and convicted cop killer by the name of Anthony Bottom. You know, in New York, he was tried, he was convicted, he was sentenced. And unfortunately, he was let out on parole. Had the death penalty been in effect in 1971, then the death penalty would have been levied. And that didn't happen. And because we did not have no parole whatsoever, he managed to get parole. But they withheld the pertinent information that he assassinated 2 New York City police officers, and with my husband and his partner. And he also participated in the murder of San Francisco police officer John Young. You know, in his bio, they say he had an altercation. They didn't say that he knew he was bombing precincts. He was a bank robber. And he was a killer of police officers. They mentioned he belonged to the Black Panther movement. But they didn't mention the Black Liberation Army, which is a sworn army to kill police officers. None of this was mentioned in the bio. And that is what the objection is here. That, you know, if you're going to have somebody there, give your students a choice. Put what he is there. Do I really want to listen to a political prisoner? And a political prisoner is Nelson Mandela. Okay, it is not Anthony Bottom. Do I want to listen to a cop killer? No, I don't think that students want to do that. But he should have been portrayed as the person that he is, a 2-time New York State cop killer and an assassin. Joe and Waverly were the first police officers in the history of this country to be assassinated. And because of what they did and what they started, there were several incidences like Foster and Laurie. And what would the college do if he speaks and what he says, he's saying things about the Black Liberation Army? What if he does that? We just lost 2 police officers from the 3-2 precinct. Police Officer Mora and Police Officer Rivera. How is the college going to feel should he decide to talk about the BLA? So it's something that the college really needs to think about with bringing him in to speak, and the invitation should be rescinded.
Diane, I don't think many people could argue with your logic, let alone your experience. And I know, again, I know this is not, I'm sure it never gets easy to talk about Joe or to talk about your experience as a wife and spouse of a assassinated New York City police officer. But I think it's important that people who weren't alive, I think it's important for people around the state to hear this, because I think very often we forget about, I mean, even in the bio, no mention of your husband, right? It's like it didn't happen. And we forget about the families, and we forget about the victims, like your children were robbed of a father for their entire lives. And I just think that that's important when we talk about why do we have to keep talking about what this man did, because what he did has implications on so many other people's lives forever. There's no parole for you. There's no parole for your kids. There's no parole for Waverly's family. And so I just want to thank you for speaking to this, because I think it is important. And I think what you said is so spot on. And I hope that people at Brockport, the administration, will hear you and appreciate your viewpoint and what you are saying, and rescind that invitation and just own up that it was a mistake, and that there's going to be a process in place going forward to prevent speakers like this from just, appearing on the campus, especially when this is, as you said, this is a free speech, but you have to be honest speech. It can't be free speech that's sort of doctored and presented in an untrue way. And there's no other way to put it, as you so eloquently stated. So I just want to thank you for taking some time with me. And I wish you could be there on Saturday. I know I go to Long Island, so I know it's not close, but
Right.
I appreciate you taking the time to tell us about Joe and your experience, because it really does mean a lot to me and a lot of other people.
I would just like to say, I think two things. For the students that go to college and are exposed to lectures from time to time, that they take a moment and they research that person who is coming in to lecture. Like I did. I went to the web page and I looked at what they had produced. I think college students are so smart today, but sometimes they just kind of, oh, it's this person, let me go. Take a minute and research. And I think that people in general need to remember that the police officer that's on your block, I know in my day, he was on the corner when I went to school. He is a husband, a father, a son, a brother, a cousin. And when you see him, say hi. He's there to protect you from whatever is surrounding you. And in these day and age, there's a lot surrounding you. So maybe say, good morning, officer. Have a nice day.
Well said,
Thank you.
Diane. Diane, thank you for being with me today and for sharing that, and just for speaking for a lot of families out there and a lot of people. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.